We've been waiting for a couple of months now for some actual details regarding Dawn of DCU. Really, the only thing we knew about was the new family of Superman titles, and really, I guess that Teenie Howard is taking over for Harley Quinn. That's kind of the only information that we had. Not exactly super exciting stuff, and now that we have some details, probably less exciting stuff. There's one series I'm absolutely really excited for, but that's because it's a creative team that's already on a really good book, which means they won't be on that book anymore. But there are a couple of things that DC announced for Dawn of DCU that definitely have me very concerned. They have major league issues with creative. They have bad writers across the board. If they do not fix that, it doesn't matter how good their ideas are. As long as the bad writers remain, they can't fix anything. Let's talk about the details. I'm going to talk about the two things that I am very concerned about. The one thing that I'm really excited about, then I'll let you know the other stuff that I'm more kind of in the middle on that doesn't get me really excited, doesn't really disappoint me and all that kind of stuff. DC is finally lifting the veil on the Dawn of DCU, and it appears that Brainiac might be underneath it, what the publisher is now calling a year-long publishing initiative and line-wide multi-event narrative designed to be an easy entry point for lifelong and brand new readers. The previously announced initiative spins out of December's Dark Crisis on Infinite Earth and will involve 20 new titles and at least 2 other major events after Lazarus Planet. Dawn of DCU also seemingly involves an overarching through line that involves classic Superman villain Brainiac, according to imagery on the Dawn of DCU timeline. Brainiac is certainly a cool villain, and I'm not against the idea of having a big DC event, I guess, leading up to a big DC event involving Brainiac. We know on the Superman titles, we are going to have Joshua Williamson as the Superman writer. On Action Comics, it's actually going to be an anthology now. Philip Kennedy Johnson, I guess, writing the main story, Dan Jurgens, and a few other writers. So I imagine this involves Joshua Williamson, who's right now writing or finishing up Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I think we can all agree at this point is very disappointing. Never really felt like an event, maybe till the last issue. And then he took like the laziest ways out of that. I don't think having 3 events in a calendar year for DC Comics is going to be all that effective because they have so much work to do with their bad creative. They have so many characters they actually need to fix. We don't have a functioning Green Lantern Corps right now. We don't have an Aquaman that can do anything right now. We don't have a functioning Superman family right now. The Justice League are dead. We haven't had a Justice League series in quite some time. Like, there's a lot of work to do. Just think about the type of work that you would have to put in just to fix the Wonder Woman family of comic books at this point. It's all going to depend on the creative, but it sounds like they're more interested in events. DC is hinting at a mid-year event in between the previously announced Lazarus Planet and the presumably Brainiac-driven year-ender. DC is giving readers the first word, night, and the first letter of the second word, T. Running the image through filters seems to suggest the second letter is E, leaving us with night, T-E, which has led many to start speculating that this will be a Batman-centric event called Night Terrors. But obviously, to be clear, that is just speculation. I imagine a Batman-centric event called Night Terrors is probably good for business. So it'll probably get people to buy that and be excited for Batman. But I don't know that that's actually the issue within DC Comics. And if it's a big crossover event, just think of all the titles that they need to get launched and actually working that it's going to interrupt. Can you afford to interrupt Wonder Woman as you're trying to fix the title with a Batman event? Can you afford to interrupt Superman with a Batman event? You know, like, it just seems like wishful thinking on their parts and not really understanding just how bad Infinite Frontier, Future State, and Dark Knight's Death Metal really destroy the DC Comics universe. Obviously, that has a lot to do with creative, which brings me to the things that I'm not very excited for. We have not had a Green Lantern title in some time. Obviously, Jeff Thorne's run is divisive. I think, for the most part, Green Lantern fans do not like it. We're getting 2 Green Lantern titles, one John Stewart, one Hal Jordan. We've all been waiting for Hal Jordan to return to the DC Comics universe to have his own solo title. But be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. Green Lantern Hal Jordan by Mariko Tamaki, launching in April of 2023. Fan favorite Hal Jordan returns to Earth and to his blockbuster superhero action storytelling roots. I can't imagine a creator that would get me less excited for a Hal Jordan Green Lantern run than Mariko Tamaki. Perhaps a Megan Fitzmartin, maybe that would get me less excited. Perhaps a Tim Sheridan, but it's clear that they don't actually care about Hal Jordan and restoring the Green Lantern title like to actual sales status. They want it to fail again because they put another failed writer on this title. The only thing that Mariko Tamaki has done at DC Comics that wasn't an outright failure was her run on Detective Comics, And if you actually look at the numbers, before she took over, that is a perennial top 30 seller as far as the comic book industry goes. Always has been. When she's halfway through her run and into Shadows of the Bat, it's almost outside the top 100 because people started dropping it because guess what? Something DC Comics and basically everyone know in the comic book industry at this point, Mariko Tamaki is a shitty superhero comic book writer. She's a really good, from what I'm told, coming of age, like queer storyteller. And I imagine that's really exciting stuff to some people. But when it comes to actual superhero storytelling, she sucks ass and cannot sell a comic book to save her life. I don't know why DC Comics insist on destroying Hal Jordan. What do they have against him? Why do they fucking hate Hal Jordan Green Lantern fans? Just disgusting stuff. The next thing I want to talk about that I'm not happy with are two series, but they have one thing in common. Batman the Brave and the Bold, Tom King, Mitch Gerrits, Guillaume March, Gabriel Hardman, Dan Moore, Rob Williams, and more, starting in May of 2023. A classic title returns with the Tales of the Dark Knight and core stories building out Dawn of DC. We also get The Penguin from Tom King and artist Stefano Guadagno, June of 2023. After escaping Gotham City and his criminal past to happily retire to Metropolis, the Penguin is forced back into organized crime by the U.S. government. The feathered felon in Gotham City will never be the same. At this point, who actually wants to see more Tom King Batman stories? The motherfucker has had his opportunity, and he's told a decent Batman story in there with Killing Time. Other than that, it feels like he's dropped the ball at every opportunity that he's had with the character. Stop giving Tom King titles, period. And certainly, please stop giving Tom King Batman titles. The Penguin, I guess, whatever. I don't really want to see a Penguin ongoing series. Hopefully this is a mini series, but perhaps Tom King and his very depressed storytelling will fit better with the Penguin because he's not a hero and stuff like that. But the guy's had his fucking opportunity. He's had his chances, and he's fucking failed on the character. How many times does Tom King get a fail on Batman and Batman-related characters at this point? What does he have on DC Comics? Does he have pictures of Jim Lee? Did Jim Lee call him sugar tits? I'm not really sure, but the motherfucker is like a cockroach. You just can't get rid of him. You can't get him away from Batman at this point. Just very frustrating stuff. There is one thing I definitely want to talk about that I am excited for. Shazam from Mark Waid and artist Dan Moore coming in June of 2023. Billy Batson is back as the champion in the action comedy comic about a boy with powers that rival Superman's and a whole lot of growing up left to do. We'll see Shazam hanging out at the Rock of Eternity, his secret clubhouse that can travel through space and time, as well as punching dinosaurs in the face, seeing how long he can hold his breath on the moon, and getting into wild and fun adventures with his tiger, Taki Tawny, by his side. The happiest DC Comics fans by far should be Shazam fans. Mark Waid is killing it on Batman Superman World's Finest, and a big part of that is Dan Moore. That is a superstar creative team to put on a title. Obviously, we are getting the Shazam movie, the sequel at least, coming out in the very near future. I imagine that's why they moved him over there. Does this mean we won't get Batman Superman anymore? I have a feeling that Mark Waid will stay on the title, but Dan Moore won't illustrate it anymore. Obviously, he's not going to be able to illustrate 2 comic books a month. I imagine he's moving over to Shazam to work on that full time with Mark Waid. Mark Waid probably stays over on Batman Superman. Although, once Lazarus Planet is over, does the title even continue? They do have a lot of plans for the Superman family. They certainly have a lot of plans for the Batman family. Is there even room for Batman Superman World's Finest? I sure hope so, because it's the one thing. Well, I guess, Flash is good and Batman's good right now, but it's the best comic book that they're producing today. To remove the creative team is a little bit disappointing, but I like Shazam. I like Billy Batson, so that was really exciting news. We did have some more creative teams and titles announced that I'm a little bit more in the middle on. Unstoppable Doom Patrol by Dennis Culver and Chris Burnham, March of 2023. Spinning directly out of Lazarus Planet, the world's strangest superheroes are saving the world by saving its monsters. Superboy, Man of Tomorrow by Kenny Porter and Janoy Lindsay in April of 2023. I believe that was the DC fan vote. That's the winner of that. So that will be absolutely inconsequential and nobody should care about it. Green Lantern, John Stewart, Philip Kennedy Johnson, and Clayton Henry. No month specified. The beloved John Stewart gets back to basics as the military-trained, gritty but heroic Green Lantern. That sounds pretty good. I like Philip Kennedy Johnson. He did a great job with Superman in space. I imagine that'll be pretty solid. Green Arrow, Joshua Williamson, Sean Isaacs, April of 2023. Oliver Queen has been lost since Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. and his family is determined to find him, but there are dangerous forces just as determined to keep them apart at any cost. Joshua Williamson wrote Dark Crisis on Infinite Earth, so I guess that makes sense. And we also have a title called Steelworks, which sounds like an Iron Man event, but with the word steel in it. Creative team to be determined, June of 2023. Just in time for the 30th anniversary, John Henry Irons must bring Metropolis into the future while trusting his niece Natasha to carry the mantle of steel. So we're getting another mantle swap, but this time for Steel. I think like he's not even a big character. They've done nothing with Steel. I guess we have enough really strong black male characters in the DC Comics universe. We can just afford to give their mantles away at this point. I guess that one should have been in the bad, but quite frankly, I do care less about John Henry Irons and Steel than I do about Green Lantern and Hal Jordan and just Tom King writing anything at this point. So those are the initial details that we do have. I promise when I get back from vacation, I will talk about this more in depth. More of these 20 titles will be announced by that point. But I do want to remind you, I talked about Dawn of DCU when they announced it, when really there wasn't much information. And I specified, I said, there are some real problems in DC Comics. If they do not fix these, there's no point doing the reboot. If you don't remember this, or you want a refresher, or you haven't seen it yet, definitely check this video out. I made it just for you. Dawn of DCU is around the corner, and they have a lot of stuff to fix that hasn't been addressed yet. If you can't see it here, there's also a link in the video description.